So this is our app. Wait, are we looking at the right screen? I'm a little gun shy after the other night. Can you just see our shopping app?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay,
Yep,
perfect.
we see it.
And this is the deployed site that I'm looking at. So if you look down at the bottom, we have our two buttons. We can add an item and we can go to list view. Those won't be there at the end. We just left them there for ease right now. So if you click on add an item, we have the space ready for the part that will go in there. We put some placeholder text just to make sure we knew where we were, and notice that the button down here in the nav is bold for where we're at. So we're at add item. We can click list view and you get to hear about this cool list in a little bit. But again, bold to say where we're at. We can go back and forth from route to route. We're going to need a home button. We don't have one yet. And we'll also get rid of these, like I said before. So that's demonstrating what we built. Now let's go to the code. Our first task, the first thing we did was added React Router, and that also presented us with our first challenge, which was React Router DOM has updated to version 6 in the middle of December. So syntax has changed. Lots of different little tiny things have gone away and other little tiny things have replaced it. So we went back and forth for a little bit talking about what made more sense. Like, do we put an older version in, go back to version 5, because that would be easier, obviously. Or do we go for it, learn the new syntax? We thought that it would be more future-proof to do the new syntax, to do the new version, I mean. And also, you know, who doesn't like a challenge? Learn something new while we're learning something new. So we went for it. And that means that as a team, we have to be aware that there could be potential new challenges ahead and, you know, conflicts that we just have to be aware of. So the first thing, let's see, that we coded, and this is going to be for you, Alina. And she's also going to talk about all the differences between version 5 and version 6 of React Router.
Okay, first we need to import routes and routes from React Router DOM. And the main difference we first encountered was that we don't use switch anymore. Now we use routes. And inside this route, we created 3 routes. So first one is the home. Yeah, so which for now it's like just a placeholder, which will be changed. The second one is add item view. Yeah, which is empty for now, so just a placeholder, and list view. The difference now that to the route you pass an element, if accept a property called element. Inside this element we pass a component we want to render. Also we created a navigation component. Yeah, inside this navigation component we had to import navlink element from React Router DOM, which is like a different kind of link element, but the main difference that it has a quality state which code is active, which can be passed to the function and can be used to change the style. Before it was used differently. We define a class name and class and use it to style the component. And also we used a JavaScript object to style this navigation to make it stick to the bottom of the page for now. And to make it all work, we wrapped our app component inside index.js file. Yeah, so we had to wrap it inside browser router to say it's like to the React that we are going to use this router function. I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Okay, I didn't forget anything.
You know what's awesome about this that I'm like really impressed with is I can't tell you to how many you know, it's like people in theory should be showing the code, right? But instead of showing you the code, they're just like telling what the code does. And I'm like, I need to see the code to visualize it. And I love how you, as you're talking through the app, you're sharing on every screen what it does. So I can kind of see like what's the syntax, and you're not clicking around like crazy. You're like, you're giving me enough time to see, well, let's see what the routes are. So in my head, I can kind of build a model of your app. Then, well, actually even better, you start with whole packages JSON, and then you're going to each component. And I can kind of like, if I was in your team as a developer, now I have a better idea what's inside of the app. So that's like really impressive. Like, again, I would really love to work with you people instead of just people telling me what a code does, but I'm like, just show me the code. And yeah, so I'll just open the floor for anybody else who has any questions, and then we can move to the other team.
No questions here, but I just have to say I'm impressed because I'm pretty sure Shelly, you were sharing your screen, but Elena, you were talking, and like that really shows you all work together because you both understood what was going on. That while Elena talked, Shelly, you were able to navigate. Like that's very rarely, like Rudy was saying, like that's very rarely pulled off. So like just awesome job collaborating, both of you understanding the problem and the solution, and very cool.
Thanks.
That's a good point. Yeah, I thought actually it was the they were switching the screens. It was so well done. It did not just different. Wow. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's impressive. I thought it was different people doing the screens at one time. Okay. Yeah. Now the other team, if you'd like.
And one really quick question, although it's okay if you don't know it. I'm just curious because I saw in the PR that you mentioned that you don't need the exact, you don't need to put exact anymore. So I was curious. I know for Switch, you know, at the bottom, how you can kind of leave like a catch-all, you know, if it doesn't hit any of these default to like a 404 page. I was curious if there's like something else we need to pass in this new version to catch the things that aren't the exact routes. And if you don't know, that's okay. I was just curious if you saw it in your quest.
We haven't found it yet, but I'm sure that we have to have it.
Yeah,
definitely.
I actually think they took out the exact. Like I don't know that you.
They did take out. Oh, they did take out the exact. You're right. They did take out.
That could be something
Yeah,
but there's still a catch-all.
Yeah, we don't use. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just read this. We don't use exact anymore because like every route is exact now, and if you want to make it like universal, you need to pass as a star at the end of so it will make it work.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Continue, Rudy / other teams.
Yeah, let's jump to the other team with no more questions. And by the way, thank you for showing me the new version of React DOM routes. I only worked with the previous one, so it's kind of cool to see how things are changing.
All right, Lindsay, go for it.
I'll first give an introduction on how our database is interacting with our client. So when you go to the list view page online, you can now enter data into this input form. And when you submit it, it will send that request to our database and also update the list on our website. So that's the functionality we created, and all these items are now stored in our database. How this translates to our code, we are using use states to be able to update our live view. We have the item text and then the items, which represents the list. So our use effect, it's listening to the database, and when there's a change made to our database, it's going to update that entire list to add the new item. And then on our handle submit is what's sending this new data to the database. So when that button is clicked, the handle submit is, the function is going to be called, and then we're going to send the item to the database. Then the use effect is called adding it to the list. And then we have a handle change to let us change the form on React. And then you can see all these functions being called in the JSX at the bottom in the return on our web page. we also have the items mapping into our list, which is the use state variable that we're updating from our API call to the Firebase database. We also have some items from Firebase we didn't edit in the code, but just they're there in the lib folder, the firebase.js file. It has our API information. We didn't add this, it was already added for us, but just so you're aware, this is what it's doing. It's adding the key, the passwords, and things like that so that our app can access our specific Firebase instance. And I'll let Gigi take over to talk more about Firebase and how it is kind of NoSQL.
Cool. Thanks, Lindsay. So to pick up a little bit on what we're talking about, so like this Firebase file here, we can actually add custom functions that we can export and that sort of thing. So we definitely want to just be aware that it's here. If anything Firebase related, like that we'll be using across the app, like we could put it in this file and then just import it in. So I do actually want to do a little tour of the Firebase console. I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to check this out, but you should have access to it. I believe Stacy sent out like an invite a few weeks ago. But basically, like once you're here, this is kind of our like landing page for our project. So you can see some cool metrics here. And then on the side, you have a bunch of different options. Firebase is awesome because it can do a whole bunch of stuff like OAuth authentication is like incredibly easy through Firebase. Having set that up manually, you're just like, oh my God, I didn't know it could be this easy. But what we're mainly going to be working with, I think, is the Firestore database. So here we are in the cloud Firestore. So as you can see, the way that this database works, like Lindsay said, it's NoSQL. So it's storing items basically in collections, and then you have documents, and then collections and documents, and it kind of alternates between those two things. And the really cool thing is that you can shape this data pretty much however we want to, right? It's kind of up to what's going to work best for us. And then we can, go from there pretty easily and do this stuff on the fly. We don't have to like create, special tables or anything like that. So what we did was we started this collection called items. I can show you that in the code in just a little bit. And then each item, this is a unique identifier that's assigned by Firebase. So you can look through here and see everything that has been saved. And then this field, item text, right? That's how we're going to access whatever we have inside there. So for example, let's see, what do we just add? Peaches. There we go. The other cool thing about the console is like you actually have all of the abilities to change things around. If you wanted to delete something, for example, so like we have Peaches here. If I just wanted to delete that entry, delete document, you sure? And then it's gone. And so, yeah, that's one way to just kind of control it from this console if you ever wanted to do that. Another really probably useful thing to be aware of is the rules. So any sort of rules we'd ever want to write with like authentication, like only this user can send in an item for this list. This happens here. So you can see allowed read write. Right now, there's really not a rule happening. But again, we can definitely customize it straight from here. So let me head back to the code real quick in our list view. So like Lindsay mentioned in use effect, this is actually what is setting up the subscription for our app to listen to any change to the database. And so that is the on snapshot method. So again, anything that gets added or edited or whatever, that's going to fire off this function. And again, you can see here, this is the collection name items that we have. And then from here, we're just pushing all of those docs into this empty array. That's pretty much all that we have, and that is how we set up our state. This function down here is also important. This is like a cleanup function for whenever we want to turn off that subscription. So that's whenever we do the unsubscribe down here. And then as far as adding goes, so this is pretty much taken straight from the get started docs from Firebase, but it's an async function. Again, add doc is the method. We tell it, this is our DB that we're passing in. We're also passing in the collection. And then this item text, again, that is taken from our state of the whatever we put into that input field. The cool thing too, like I said, is we can customize the data that we send to Firestore. So this doesn't have to just be a string. It can be a whole object. So we'll probably want to do that, especially as we get into like user IDs or like, I think we're going to be having like list IDs that are unique. You can create it. We can create an object and we can basically say like, this is everything that we want sent. And then it'll end up in the Firestore for us. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. Anything I'm missing, Lindsay? Anything
Yeah, just like I just want to reiterate that the snapshot docs, those things come directly from Firebase, and we use the documentation on Firebase to build that code. So just in case that looks unfamiliar to you, or what is a snapshot, it's from Firebase.
Yeah, definitely. And the docs on Firebase are really great. They have information for adding stuff, retrieving data, editing, that sort of thing. So I'm sure we'll definitely all be checking that out as we go. All right. I think that's all we got.
Awesome. I have a question as an engineer, but before that, amazing presentation. Again, I love how you're going through the code. And I just love your passion about a Firebase, right? Because when you have a meeting with fellow engineers, you want to show them what you're working on. And here, that dashboard is a big deal, what makes the process much easier. So when the presentation started, I'm like, but because I haven't worked with Firebase yet. It was recommended to me, but I worked with SQL before, which is, let's be honest, pain, but it works. And I kept thinking, I wonder what was your experience like with ramping up Firebase? Because I didn't hear anybody complain. And then you're like, oh, let me show you the dashboard. And I'm like, yes, that's what I was curious about. So the only quick question I had is, how do you, when you were setting up the Firebase, did you feel like it wasn't getting in the way, like in terms of like setting up schema and all that? Did it feel like much smoother and easier? Because with SQL, you have to very much define, yeah, everything perfectly, otherwise things don't work. So I'm curious about your experience about that, because I haven't used the Firebase yet.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that's kind of the magic of it. With being a NoSQL database, you don't have to define anything beforehand. So, you know, you're as you're building out your app, like you can kind of control what you want that to look like. And you can still have relations, right? You can still have like a user with their specific items that match an ID or whatever, but you don't have to have join tables or anything like that. So yeah, it's a super powerful thing. And as far as setting it up, like Lindsay said, we didn't really have to spin anything up. Like the API keys were already there for us. It's like, you know, you do set up your app in the console, and you know, Firestore has some like prompts for you to answer like a few questions, but after that it's there, and then you just kind of initialize it and then go.
Yeah, I kept asking DJ where all the code went that I'm used to writing for these kind of databases. But yeah,
it's honestly, it's amazing for like quick prototypes and quick apps to deploy. I gotta try it. Like I'm still very much, as a prompt engineer, I'm stuck with what I know, which is SQL, but I will definitely looking forward to play with it more.
very
Awesome.
fast.
Okay, and I'll just open the floor if anybody else has any questions. See, these presentations are so good. Like you already answered everything. I need to check in Slack who's next.
Me, I think. You meant for today, right?
Yeah. Because looks like code review learning module, Lauren, if I get it this right. Yeah.
Okay, so we are talking about code reviews. Yay! You guys did an excellent job this week, by the way. But this is hopefully just going to add some clarification if, since maybe it's possible people here haven't had this experience before. So just to kind of help frame it as you go. So code reviews, what we're going to cover, what are code reviews? The general code review cycle, not only how to make a code review, but how to make a great code review. As someone who's creating the PR, how can I help others review my code? And how to be most effective when you review others' code. And then finally, we'll go through a few little shortcuts in or helpful things in GitHub to help with your code reviews. First, what is the code review? So it's a conversation. It's a place to kind of keep track of some question answers among your team, referencing specific parts of the code. And it's a great place to share knowledge and also to learn from others. So as is like with the theme of Collab Lab, it's a collaboration space where you can share your work and also ask questions. In general, if people are engaged, it can really help you as a developer because again, you're sharing this knowledge and getting feedback about very specific pieces of your code. But it can also help your team. It decentralizes knowledge. So for instance, you know, a lot of the things that all of you did, you wrote in your PRs, and that already helps to kind of give context to the rest of the team that will probably take over tasks related to what you are doing. So it helps to kind of share the responsibility and just improve the overall code quality. The general cycle is you open a PR, sometimes a draft PR, but once you actually open it for review, it goes to others to receive feedback. If they request some kind of changes, make those changes, goes back to double check that everything has been fixed or adjusted as necessary, and then finally merged. So what makes a great code review? One of the main things is actually not to over review. So try to resist focusing on things that aren't really key to the code. For instance, you know, you missed a semicolon here, or you missed a space there. A lot of these things can actually be taken care of by tools like Prettier and ESLinters. So in fact, if you're working on a team, you might be able to say, hey, just making sure, are we using the same linter? Or is there something that, you know, but that you don't have to write every single time you see one of these stylistic things and then distract from the actual important part. Number two is important, try out the features locally. So what's great about the way that we're currently set up with Collab Lab is that as long as there's no kind of merge conflicts, it'll automatically generate a preview link. Did you guys get a chance to see those in there? Oh, okay. Well, I'll show you after this, as long as they're still there. But anyway, you can see a preview link without actually pulling down the code and trying it yourself. And that's like a quick way to test it out. But in general, it's best if you can pull it down locally and see it for yourself, just because you can sometimes catch little edge cases, or it just helps you prepared, you know, when you pull it down and kind of test out yourself, it helps when you're contributing something related to that. Consider if you will understand this code a month from now. So I think there were a lot of great comments in the code, and also then I saw that there was great naming that was very clear, but just consider that as you go, you want to be able to make this long lasting. So maybe in the future, if you had less context, could someone still understand the code? Praise. As much as we are trying to kind of help others grow their code, it's important to also point out the really positive things. Also, because this is a public place, so other people in your company will be seeing it, and it's nice to just point out things that people are doing well. And also, side note, these PRs, once they're merged, they're still there. So in addition to being some kind of artifact for people to see, you know, like, oh, they did really well here, it's really important and useful if you forget how to do something and you can go back and see testing steps. Be kind and empathetic. Everyone here is really great, very kind. The comments were really excellent. So that's just a general rule, but everyone's already doing that. Okay, these others I think are common sense. So I already mentioned run the code. It gives you confidence to make an approval, to say like, oh yeah, I actually really tested this out myself. And it helps you find things you wouldn't find just by skimming and like glancing at the code. we all know that code can look perfectly and then you go to run it and you're missing like a comma, right? There's like some really silly thing. So that's really helpful. Resist the urge to do, looks good to me, LGTM. And PRs can include instructions on how to run the code, but if they don't and you're confused, take an extra 5 seconds to like ask your team member just so that everyone's on the same page. I'm talking really quickly. Are there any questions so far? Okay.
Trivial one. What does LGTM mean?
Oh, looks good to me. I had to look that one up too. I was like, what is LGTM? But
I guess the first line, I thought it was like, looks good. Go push the code. Oh, wait, it doesn't sound right. Okay, I got half of it.
How can I help others review my code? So add a meaningful PR description. Wherever possible, write meaningful commit messages. So I think probably everyone here has written one that just says like updated text or, you know, like fixed typo. I guess, I mean, I've done that a fair amount too. Maybe for typos, that's okay. But like just kind of generic messages. And if you can be a little more specific, it can be very helpful. After you make your PR, sometimes it's actually helpful to go through and do a self-review, which is basically just leaving comments about places you want the other developers to like pay a little extra attention. Like, hey, I put this up, but this function I feel like could be more efficient. Can someone look at this more closely? And finally, these are just a few tools that people use that you can use to do like a very quick screen share video to add and to help explain parts of your code. I saw that there's actually a Loom integration in GitHub already, so that might be the fastest and easiest one to do. I haven't used Sketch, but obviously we have a lot of people in the Collab Lab that are from Zapier, so I'm sure that they have a lot of experience with Zapier. Okay, exploring code in GitHub. So both teams had excellent PRs this week, so I'm going to use you as examples. Thank you, thank you. Elena and Shelley, your PR was great. I really loved your description and kind of helping everyone get context for your updated version of React Router DOM, and also your preview. The screenshots were helpful in seeing how things changed. But here, something that's really cool is that you can step through the commit messages and look through the code that way. And then also you can, so let's just take a peek there. So from here, conversation, you can go to files changed. This is where having very specific commit messages is very helpful. Because you can go to exactly where someone added a specific function, and then you can step through the different commits here and see how things evolved. The next thing that's helpful is being able to kind of auto collapse some elements that you've already reviewed. So going over to DJ and Lindsay's PR, you guys had really clear testing steps. That was great. But if you look at files changed, once you review something, you can actually click it as viewed and it will auto collapse it for you. And this can be really helpful when you're checking something with a ton of files, or let's say you started reviewing this and you need to finish it later, but you already went through half the code. So just marking this off can help you retrace your steps more effectively when you get back. And something else you can do when you're approving is you can go up here. Let's say, I just wanted to show you a few little things. So you can comment directly in the code like this. I know if some of you already did that, but just in case others didn't know, you can reference really specific pieces of code in the file and leave a comment here. And if this will kind of trigger an email like, hey, so-and-so commented. But if you want to actually have it write several comments and have them all go at once, after you leave a comment, you click start review, and it will hold on to them until you say like submit review, and then it will send all of them at once. So those are just some little tricks for being even more specific in your reviews, because if you leave a general comment, it might be hard to see what lines of code you're talking about.
Hey, Lauren, quick question about that. So if you were just to leave a single comment, that's not going to start that like whole chain of events. I just want to make sure I'm clear, like leaving a review or a comment in the code and then starting a review. That's, can you just walk through that again?
Sure. So if you wanted to leave one comment, you would just add a single comment, and then it would trigger off the email saying so-and-so, left a comment on your PR. But let's say you were going to do the whole PR at once. So instead of triggering 4 separate comments, you can click start review instead, and then leave a bunch of comments. And then at the end, when you say submit review, that's when they get all 4 comments at once. So it just depends. Yeah. Also some other things that people, I think, already saw, but once you see something, or once you resolve it, you can click resolve conversation and it will just clean it up a little bit. I think, oh, DJ did that down here. So once you've done something, yeah, you can mark it as resolved, and it just helps clean up the code for the other people reviewing, or also to keep track of what you've addressed already or not. So at this point, I'd like to invite everyone to share their thoughts. If you have a past experience or what your experience was like this week. But yeah, what did you guys think about the stuff that you did this week?
I hadn't done them before, so every group project we did, we basically merged live together, like holding each other's hands through Zoom. So we didn't look at each other's codes independently. So this was cool. I liked doing it that way, and I still have to learn how to navigate GitHub a little bit better. So this was helpful too, Lauren.
I've done 2 previous pull request reviews for an open source project, Hack Relay, that I'm in, but you just showed me so many more tools that I can use on GitHub, so that's amazing. I'm really excited to use that for the next one.
Something that I liked with your code reviews, PR reviews, is that usually the challenge I have is that folks will start discussions in Slack, and they'll talk about everything in Slack. And so when you see code being changed and pushed, like a few weeks later, you're like, well, why was this changed? I don't see a conversation here, because Slack eventually expires. So I love the fact that all the conversations in your case happen in GitHub. So it means like a year from now, I can kind of go and look and see, oh yeah, okay, that's what we're talking about. So it's kind of cool. It's actually pretty inspiring for me to see that done that way, because I was always like, am I being too chatty in GitHub? But this was great for having historical perspective and record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only like kind of code reviews I've had have been like whole project reviews. So it's not like a specific like this going through this process, but I really like it because, it's really good to get that regular feedback. So yeah.
I think it also is a good place. Oh, go ahead. Was Elena's? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I never done it before. I never had this experience, but I really like it. I like to receive reviews because it helps to look at the problem from different side. And at the same time, I like to review other people's code because it's you practice and you learn a lot. I actually learned a lot about Firebase from your code, so it's really nice. And I'm glad I have this experience. I will practice more. Thanks.
The one thing I realized, I think I skipped over when I said the rest are common sense, but actually that's important, is I just wanted to emphasize defaulting to approval. And this doesn't mean if you find a breaking change to necessarily approve it, but this would be small changes. Sometimes it would be preferences where you say, hey, I think this might be better, but you don't have to. Or if it's a small change, again, not a breaking change, but hey, I caught one little error. So what you could do in this case is leave a message that says, hey, can you please fix this before merging, but I approve it. And that helps instill trust within teams, but also B can help move the process along, because sometimes you're working with people in different time zones and they can't merge it until they have the approval. So, if it's something small, keep that in mind. What 2 other tiny things I wanted to just bring about at the end. So they mentioned like how you can leave testing and description stuff for good descriptions and testing steps in your PRs. And in general, I've found like the easier you make it for your coworkers, the more likely they are to leave meaningful feedback or like to get to it, you know, because if they don't have the context, then they might save it for when they have half an hour to figure it out on their own. So if you make it really easy, then it's more likely that they'll do it like sooner. And just finally, well, at the end here are some resources. So we'll share this in, I feel like I should collaborate with Rudy and Eddie and make some kind of like central place where we can have all of this available for you. But we'll have this. But just you guys did a really great job. Everyone was engaged in some way, but I would encourage everyone to try to write something this week, even if it's positive. Like if you can do specific feedback, that's great. Like, hey, I really liked blank specific thing, just because we're all trying to get comfortable with doing it. But also really specific feedback, even if it's positive, is helpful too. So that's it. Are there any other questions or anything? Well, thank you for listening to my for 20 minutes. On to you, Eddie.
Cool, sounds good. Let's see here. So we'll be talking through the issues that we are doing. So I've actually got my screen share ability working this week. Yay. All right, so we've got 2 tickets. One is about setting up a new shopping list, and the other is about adding a new item to a shopping list. So one's actually getting the list set up, one is adding items to the list. So in general, you know, what you're wanting to do here is take a look at, you know, what the shopping list consists of. You need a unique token that, you know, kind of, my brain died, but, you know, is the ID of the list. You want to save that token to local storage and show the user the list view. There is a pre-existing script for you to use. It's actually in this package here. So we can open that up real quick. Oh, somehow the window closed. Okay. Safari crashed. Great. Right. Okay.
Eddie, you're the professional screen sharer.
I know. Never had such smooth screen sharing experiences.
Screen is like, I can't handle this ticket. I'm just gonna quit.
I know. All right, I think this is just new Safari coloring, but man, a red toolbar makes you seem like there's something wrong here. I think that's just style though. But yeah, so we have shopping list utils here, and you have a function called get token that generates a random string. So that's a great dependency to be able to include. Yeah, so here we go. So you've got that link here. It kind of explains how you can go ahead and get that imported, add it as a dependency. And so then what you'll want to do is have a button or link that exists on the home screen to actually generate the token. And then from there, you save it to local storage and redirect them to the list view. Finally, if they do already have a token, then they should just be taken to the list view. So eventually we've got this wireframe here. This wireframe, it does not need to look like this at the end of this week. Like, so breathe in, breathe out. Okay. This is just kind of showing you, hey, this is what it's going to look like. And that's totally normal. Like all the time, you get really elegant designs from a designer, And that's what it's going to look like in like 6 months or, 3 months or something. And sometimes you have to resist the urge to start out of the gate trying to make this thing look like the design the designer has given you. So this is kind of a test in your patience, right? See where it's going to go. That way you can build towards it, but not feel like you have to tackle everything that is on the screen. So the big thing here is having a button that you can click and generates the token. And then if you have extra time, you can, work on arrangement and styling. But yeah, so that reminder is there. And then we've got issue number 4. Let's see, there we go. So issue number 4 is adding a new item to your shopping list. So to DJ's point, right, you can store a bunch of attributes in an object. So here's kind of a collection of data points that could be related to an item: a name, how soon are you to buy it again, and last purchased date. So those are kind of 3 big things. And here are kind of some values as to how soon you might buy the thing again. So that's good to kind of keep in mind. You've got some acceptance criteria here. So the user is presented with a form that allows them to enter the name of the item, select when they need it. And then when the user submits the form, it's saved to the database associated with the user's token. And along with the item name, you get an estimated number of days until the purchase is saved. So that's back up here for soon, kind of soon, and not soon. And then the last purchase date should be set to null initially because, surprise, they haven't purchased it yet. And item names should be displayed with a simple unordered list once they're added. So fairly simple, right? Typing in stuff, selecting, how soon they want to save it, and then having that kind of set up the values initially. Again, a couple of wireframes. Don't worry too much about what these look like because these are like the finished app. But here you have what it looks like to add an item. So you've got some text, you've got, a radio button, and then you've got a button to actually add the item and a little navigation UI here at the bottom. So definitely there's some UX notes. So, as you build some of this out, you will want to keep that in mind, but obviously you don't need to do all of that right now. I think I already opened both of these. Yes. And then here's a populated list. So you've got your shopping list. Eventually you'll have a way to filter it, and you've got your list of things. So again, this filter isn't out of the gate, but yeah, have an idea. You're gonna have things to shopping list and they'll be listed there. So yeah, again, keeping in mind, this is where it's going. So as you're building, what can I do today to lay the foundation for it, but not get overwhelmed by what you have to do? Because sometimes it can be intimidating thinking a whole bunch of stuff needs to be done. So awesome. I guess from there, do we have groups? Do we know who the groups are?
I just I just added some pinned messages in the Slack channel. So it's Lindsay
Nice.
and Alana, and then DJ and Shelly.
Perfect. So does any of the pair, either Lindsay and Elena or DJ and Shelly, feel like they have a specific one that they would like to work with?
I like them both, but I think I like 3 a little bit better. DJ, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I could go either way, honestly. So whichever one you're down with is good with me.
Lena, Lindsay, do you guys have strong feelings?
I'll pick me. How do you feel, Elena?
All right, seems like everyone's good. The last two comments were a little bit quiet. So, but you all don't have any strong preferences, it sounded like. Cool. All right, I'm seeing head nods. All right, well then we can go ahead and throw this one to Shelly and DJ. Oh, same
You
thing
pulled
that
a me.
happened. I know. It makes you want to click on it. We may be finding UX problems with GitHub, really. That may be really
Yeah, that's what it
frustrating.
is.
It's totally not us.
So actually, while he's filling out the names, something I just wanted to flag, because I think the next couple issues are not. There's one part that I feel like isn't super clear, which is when you're actually connecting the token to Firebase. It could really either happen in this one right here, number 3, or the next one, number 5, is when you're sharing tokens with someone else. So it will have to be in Firebase. So I guess it's up to you guys if you want to add it in this week's or next week's, because it only mentions saving it specifically in local storage, but it will have to go up. And then the other thing is that you guys were great with the Firebase setup, but just keep in mind, so the input will probably have to move, the current input will move to the add list view. And then again, you might have to connect with the other team, just because this is the trickiest part where we're just figuring out how to connect to Firebase. Like, if it's per token now, instead of one whole list, it's like different lists, you guys will probably just have to communicate that. But once these issues are done, the rest, it's like much easier to merge. So this is like the big one.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions now that you actually have, right, like, which one is assigned to you? Are there any kind of outstanding questions that you all want to ask while we're still on the call? Cool. All right, I will hand it back over to Lauren for whatever we need to do to wrap this thing up.
I think actually the only thing left is to have people create branches. So if people don't mind sharing your screens, I'll give you a second to clear we don't care if you want to clear tabs. But I had I didn't show this earlier. So this is on the pull request from DJ and Lindsay. And so because they didn't have conflicts, you can actually see this here. So conversation, commits, then there's this thing called checks. If these checks pass, this is actually the CI/CD pipeline that was set up. It's called like GitHub Actions that I didn't do, other people in Collab Lab did. But basically, if it passes the checks, it will build a preview for you. So you can see that in here, it'll generate this GitHub Actions. And then, so it's connected. It's like a integration with Netlify. This is from the PR that they submitted. So it didn't have the other pages. And anyway, that's like a quick way for you to look. Also, sorry, one more thing. Really, normally we need to emphasize like moving this across, but you guys did that. So great job. If you guys weren't so good, it would feel more normal to tell you these reminders. But does anyone mind sharing their screen to create a branch, just to make sure that we're all set up for this week?
Yeah, I can do it. All right. Can I just do this from the command line or no? Yeah, right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna say git branch. Is it just git branch?
Alt branch.
I'm sorry.
I think it's git checkout B. No?
Oh yeah. Oh sure. Yeah, this is gonna switch me over.
And just make sure. I know that you were the last to merge, but it's just good practice. Just do another get pull to make sure you're pulling you're getting your branch off of the most recent main.
Oh, okay, cool.
And you want to make sure you're on main and not like the branch you were working on before you merged.
Okay,
Nice.
All right, so git checkout B, and then S, is it M? Sorry. Okay. SMDJ. Shelly, what do we want to call this?
Oh, you're muted, Shelly.
Yeah, that's just me talking to myself.
We all do it. It's okay. Just want to say, like, what's the issue here? Set up shopping list. Is that cool? Okay. Set up shopping. Cool.
Okay, then go ahead and do a git push. Because right now it's only living on your computer.
Oh.
So you need to do, and it'll probably be, if you do get push, it'll prompt you to have this long string.
Yeah.
Like set up.
String, yeah. Okay, it should be up there. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Lindsay or Elena, do you mind creating it? And Shelly, why don't you try pulling it down and just let us know if you have a problem.
Elena, do you want to make it or do you want to pull it?
I didn't hear.
Oh, do you want to make the branch or do you want to pull the branch?
Ah, okay.
You said you'll do it. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
How do we want to call it?
Maybe just add items to keep it short, and that kind of covers.
Item. That's enough. An item. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I already pulled, and I'm on main. Okay, and item. That's it.
And then push.
And completely unrelated, I love your color scheme. I also always kind of pick the kind of yellowish, almost like a actual paper. It feels very relaxing.
Okay, let me check. Yeah, it's all there. You can pull.
And then when I do git pull, I reference a specific branch name, right? Git pull the branch name. Okay.
Or what you could also just do git pull in general and then do git checkout her branch name.
Branch name. Okay, cool.
And I was able to check out the branch.
It's not working. I see it. But then I
So
like
try
git
doing,
branch.
that might just be what's on your computer. So once you do, try git checkout and the new one, and
Oh, okay. So I kind of have to just like reference it directly. Okay, that makes sense.
I think there is some kind of tag you can add, like remote. I don't remember the exact wording, but that will show the remote branches too. But I think when you just run git branch, it's your local branches. Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? I think I have office, I think I'm the office hours person this week. So we probably won't use this since it's the Eddie's corporate account, but we can either use like a 40-minute link for and like re-enter on Zoom or Google Meet or something. I'll send a message earlier. So I no pressure if people are, it's optional again. I just want to emphasize people don't feel like if you can't do it. Okay, awesome. Well, I hope you all have a great week.
Yeah, you too. This is great.
You too.
You too.
Thanks, everybody.
Great week.
Bye.
Bye.